Welcome to the first episode of Tactical and Practical Split Testing Like a Pro series. And today we are talking about the mother of all split tests, the one I've seen to be the highest impact test we can run, the one I keep going back to time and time again anytime performance needs a boost. We're going to talk about testing prices. And I can't talk about testing prices if I don't give a shout out to our sponsor, IntelliGems. It's the only tool I know of that lets you run clean A/B/C/D price tests on your website. They make it super easy. So at the end of this episode, if you realize that price testing is a piece of the pie that you've been missing, a tool in your toolbox that's missing, then you're going to go to IntelliGems.io, sign up for a demo, see what it's all about, and let them know I sent you to help support the podcast. But all right. If you don't know me, I'm Nate Lagos. I'm the vice president of marketing at a Original Grain watch company. I've been price testing religiously for 2 years. I've walked some other brands through how to do it. And in those last 2 years, we've grown the brand by 100%, both years. So life's been good, and I credit price testing to be a huge part of that. And during my time, both helping OG and walking some friends in the industry through this process, I've realized that most ecom brands have a flawed methodology when it comes to setting their prices. The most common method is to rely on a target gross margin goal. So, if your product costs you $25, you decide that you want 75% margin, so you priced it at $100. What you're doing there when you optimize for a target gross margin goal is you're optimizing for profit per unit sold. And in the day and age of Trump's tariffs, you might be tempted to raise your prices to keep that same margin percentage or even just the same dollar margin. But I think if you're just looking at a margin goal, you're leaving money on the table. See, optimizing for profit per unit sold incorrectly assumes that one price point is going to produce an identical amount of orders to another. And after the last 2 years of testing our prices every single quarter at Original Grain, I have the data to prove that's not true. Different prices produce different consumer behavior. It's common sense to know that a lower price might result in more products sold, and a higher price might result in fewer products sold. But I can tell you that's not always the case. And you can assume that some people might buy a little bit more or a little bit less, but you don't know how much more. You don't know how much less. And you won't know until you test it. So that's why today is going to be about price testing, because I can tell you how impactful it's been for us. We've been able to increase our conversion rate and our AOV. We've decreased our cost to acquire customers, and we've seen massive gains in our revenue and profit per session. And it all starts with this relentless chase of price market fit. That's a term I invented, by the way, because I did the marketing guru thing of inventing his own term. Most founders out there are solely focused on product market fit, and that's a good thing. You can't get anywhere without having a product that people want. But the very next step needs to be chasing price market fit, because there's plenty of products that people might want, but they wouldn't buy them if it wasn't priced correctly. Right? Here's my example. I buy Red Bull by the pallet. I think when the forklift drops it off, it ends up costing me like $1.60 per can. And if that same can of Red Bull was priced at $3 a can, I'd drink the same amount. If it was $5 a can, I'd probably drink the same amount. If it was $10 a can, I might try to cut back from like 3 cans a day to 1. But if that Red Bull was $100 a can, I'd find a different way to get caffeinated. See, I'm a Red Bull loyalist and fan and evangelist. I buy, the merch. I go to the Formula One races. I just bought, and I'm working through the Formula One car Lego set from Red Bull. Some would say that I'm a Red Bull addict. But even me, with my, brand affinity or addiction, if you ask my wife, at a high enough price, I'd quit Red Bull. Right? I might just become a full-blown Coke head. Coke, the soda, not the other thing. Get your mind out of the 8-ball. What I'm trying to say is that a great product is only great if the price is right. A great product is only great if it's priced at a level where people are willing to buy it and buy it again. So after you've found product market fit, here's the step-by-step instructions on how to find price market fit. First, you need to set a baseline price. If you're an existing brand, this is easy. Just your current price, that's the baseline. If you're a new brand, pick a baseline, probably based on some category competitors. Maybe if your product's a little bit nicer, a little bit worse, pick that, but pick a baseline price, because the first phase of price testing, we are going to test 20% higher than your baseline versus 10% below your baseline. Now, I want to call out an important point here, a couple important points here. One, we're testing big gaps. 10% below, 20% above. That's a wide range of price that we are testing. That is very intentional, right? This phase one is all about getting directional data. The winner of phase one of testing will not be the price that you set and forget you're done. We're going to test more granularly as we go. So that's the first point to note here. The second thing is I'm testing further higher than I am lower. I believe it's harder to raise your prices than it is to increase them, and you don't want to deal with customer service problems and people that used to see it for lower or whatever. I just think it's easier to walk it back if you go higher first. So we're testing 20% above, we're testing at your baseline, and we're testing 10% below. So let's stick with this $100 example. We would set up our prices at $120, $190. When it comes to measuring the results of this test, we are going to use profit per site session as our North Star metric. We already discussed that measuring price by profit per unit sold is flawed and incorrect. So instead, we are looking at profit per site session because it takes into account your COGS, your margins, your conversion rate, your AOV. It's a summary of the perfect balance between the product's take rate and your margins. That's why we use this as the determining metric here. So once you figure out what the highest profit per session price was from phase one of testing, you're ready to start phase two. In this example, let's say the higher price produced the most profit per session. That price was $120. We are now going to fill the gaps that we missed out on in test number one. So we're going to put 120 in the middle, and I'd probably test 130 above it, and I'd probably test 110 below it. So now we're getting a little more granular here. If the baseline price of 100 won the test, I might test, 95, 100, 105, and 110. If the lowest price of 90 won the test, I'd test 95, 90, and 85. The point here is to just narrow in on and continue to dial in on what is going to be the optimum price here. Now, don't skip this part. A lot of people price test once or twice and they think they're done and that's it. But you'd be surprised when we start testing some of these granular things, we can increase the price $4, $7, $14, and the conversion rate and the take rate doesn't change. That means that extra $4, $7, or $14 is going straight to the bottom line every single time. So do not skip phases 2, 3, and beyond of this. Do them thoroughly, because every dollar gained goes straight into your bank account. At the end of phase two, depending on how high your products are priced at, if you're testing like, 2,000, 2,400, and 1,700 or whatever, like you're going to do lots of phases to narrow it in. But if you're like, most of it's in e-com, AOV is less than $500. By phase two, you probably have a good idea of what the perfect price is. You might need a phase three where you get even more granular. But whatever one, and this maybe be the most impactful thing I'll say on this podcast, whichever price wins, higher or lower, you need to learn from that, and you need to make changes to your business accordingly. Hear me out. If a higher price won, set that as a price site-wide. But you are going to need to immediately scale your paid advertising. Increase your budgets, even if you have a slightly higher CAC than you're used to, because that higher price might slow down your order rate, your conversion rate. It might slow down new customer acquisition. So you now need to accelerate that to make sure that you're not left with a warehouse of, yes, more expensive and more profitable, but a warehouse full of inventory. So you're going to want to scale your budgets right away. You also are going to want to think about how you can nurture that customer that's now paying a higher price. You need to make sure the quality of your product, your package, your post-purchase communication, your customer service matches the new higher price that they just paid. If a lower price won, you need to go to your suppliers. You need to place a bigger PO for more units, and you need to try to get a break on your COGS because now you're going to be buying larger quantities. It's the opposite of when a higher price one and maybe order volume slowed down a little bit. A lower price is likely going to increase your order volume. You need to have your post-purchase flows and retention marketing efforts dialed in because a lower price increases the velocity of new customer acquisition, which means you'll be able to feel and benefit from the compounding, LTV dollars of repeat purchases. Both higher and lower prices winning can be great news for your business. And I can tell you in the past year, we've had both higher and lower prices win on a variety of our products, but dialing in each collection and each product perfectly means we've been able to improve every metric that matters to us. CAC is lower, conversion rate's higher, revenue per session's higher, AOV is actually higher too. All of those things have added up to massive, greater than 100% top and bottom line growth in back-to-back years. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that this has been a huge unlock to the business and has really helped us grow profitably. But there's one catch. I know all this has sounded like great news, just takes a little bit of work, and you can set your prices and make a ton of money, but there is a catch here. And the catch is this never ends. This never ends. When I say price market fit and that relentless chase for it, I'm not just talking about the market in Q2 of 2025. I'm talking about the market next quarter and the quarter after that and the month after that and the year after that and a decade from now. Right, my 2 years of price testing experience, I can tell you that the prices that won last year in Q3 were different than the prices that won in Q4. The prices from this Q1 were different from last Q1. The prices that I'm testing for our Father's Day sale right now are a little bit different than the ones that won a year ago. Right? And it might seem like these $5 and $9 and $10 increases and decreases on prices aren't moving the needle much, but the data proves they are. Each one of these tests I run produces a either 5-figure uplift or loss for our business if we choose the wrong one. So not only do we price test every quarter, but we price test every sales period. So for us, that's Valentine's Day, Father's Day, and Christmas guaranteed. We'll be going through 3 phases of price testing for each of those seasons. I just launched phase 1 of the price test for our Father's Day sale. We're testing 3 pricing tiers right now. We'll probably let that run for 7 to 10 days and then narrow in from there. We'll probably hopefully set the winning prices by June 1st. So when buyer demand for Father's Day finally peaks, when people realize, oh, shoot, it's June 3rd, Father's Day is next week, what am I going to get my dad? I already have the funnel completely dialed in. Not only do we test every quarter and every sales period, it's also the first thing I do every time there's a dip in performance, right? Like March of this year was our worst month of the year so far. Still crushed last year, grew by like 80 or 90%, but our worst month of the year, performance wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. So I immediately spun up a price test and found some efficiencies, found some gains. So not only do we test every quarter, every sales period, and when performance is bad, you can also do it when your business changes, right? If you are growing and buying more and more inventory and you're getting a better deal on that inventory, you should input your new COGS into Shopify and run the price test again. You can also price test in response to tariffs. We did that this year as well. We plugged in what our COGS would be if the first proposed tariffs stuck, and we tested higher prices to know what the rest of the year might look like. We're trying to get insight now. into, what Q4 could look like, what next year could look like if our COGS increase due to tariffs. So we repeat this phased approach to price testing constantly, so we are always in tune with what the market is determining as the perfect price for that moment in time. I can tell you, as we've like quintupled the size of our business in the last couple of years, this is one of very, very few tactics that has not run out on us. It is just as effective today as the day we started it, and doing it consistently has allowed us to scale more than we ever thought was possible. Hey, let me interrupt myself quick, because instead of talking about it, I can just show you the results of some real price tests and how I analyzed them. Here we go. All right, first up, this price test was for an accessory for an upsell on our website, and historically, it was always priced at $39. We were comfortable with both the margin percentage and the dollar margin on that product. We thought the value was right, so that's what we had always done. But we wanted to increase the take rate of this upsell, and we wanted to make more money on it. So we tested our prices. We had heard from some customers that they thought it was a little bit expensive. So this test, we only decided to test lower. So we went from 39 and we test 29 and 19. And I'll be honest, we were scared to test 19. This was one of those things that we were like, damn, that's really cheap. Our margins get a lot worse. We're cutting the price in half. Like, we don't know if this is going to have the increase in conversion rate necessary to make up for the decrease in margin. But you can look at the data and you can see here that conversion rate did increase, which means revenue increased, and it increased enough that profit per visitor was 10 cents higher. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 10 cents for every single person that comes to our website in the near future. That adds up. So this was really powerful for us to see, and it's a trend we've seen a lot with some of our accessory and some of our lower price products. Going lower seems to work even better. Next up, we price tested a new watch that we released. It was a brand new design, brand new movement type. We have an idea of what this watch should cost, but we like to test these things and make sure it's right. So on launch for this new collection, we price tested these watches from $350 to $400. Now, this is one of those tests that kind of breaks my brain, that kind of doesn't follow the trend you would expect. You would expect the lower price to always produce a higher conversion rate and vice versa, but that's not what happens here. We see this middle tier of pricing at $379 had the highest conversion rate, then had the highest revenue and profit per visitor. The AOV was not the highest in the category, but again, profit per visitor is our North Star metric. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but there have been a couple examples of this where we can increase the price from, $350 to $360 or $370 or $380 and not notice a difference in conversion rate, or in some cases beat it, right? There's something that happens to people's brains when they start spending $300 to $500, and then we've seen it again from like $600 to $800. $30 increases don't change conversion rate. When you get above $600, it doesn't seem like $50 increases decrease conversion rate at all. So we start to get an idea of where people's price windows are, and we learned that anyone who would buy a watch at $350 is going to buy it at $380 too, and we just clawed back $30 worth of margin for every single watch we sell. So that's been the winning price for this collection lately. All right, this next test was right before Black Friday last year. We are getting down into those $10 and $5 increments that I talked about to make sure we are super dialed in on price. So we had our control baseline prices, and then we had everything at -$5, +5, and +10. This again was, our last kind of round of testing to make sure that we're just scraping every single dollar from the bottom of the funnel as we possibly can. You'll see here that lowest price increase conversion rate enough that profit per visitor ended up being 20 cents higher than the next thing. And again, 20 cents doesn't sound like a lot. $1.70 of profit per visitor doesn't sound like a lot. But when it comes to our Black Friday sale that we ran for 45 days last year, dialing this in so every single person that came to our website was giving us $1.70 worth of profit is crazy impactful. This right here is why you cannot skip this last round of price testing at these granular levels, because it is crazy how much extra profit this produced. The price that won the previous round was this control group that was producing $1.36 of profit for everyone who came to our website. Let's do some quick math here. $1.70 minus $1.36. What is that? It's 34 cents. 34 cents. And then let's say we had 1 million site sessions. Let's see what an extra 34 cents of profit for 1 million site sessions does. That's an extra $340,000. Are you guys still listening? That is an extra $340,000 worth of profit because we tested a price $5 lower than what had won the previous round of price testing. So do not skip this last part. Lastly, I want you to be aware of testing different customer cohorts separately and analyzing that data separately, because a trend that we have started to see is that new customers are willing to spend more money than our past customers. It's because over the last couple of years, we have moved up market. Our most popular watch used to cost $200. Today, our most popular watch costs $350. So we have moved up market enough that our past customers are not used to spending more than $300 on a watch, and that cohort is consistently winning on the lowest pricing tier. But our acquisition funnels are doing the job of communicating the value of our newer, more expensive products, and new customers are winning on average at a price $20 above what our returning customers are winning at. So if we wanted to, we could roll out personalizations, and we could roll out pricing specifically to new customer cohorts. We could do some kind of, OG club membership where you have to buy one watch once to get in on it, and then you get our lowest prices possible for the future. Not sure yet, but it's really important to look at this data because some of this can inform, your product development strategies, right? I looked at this and I said, hey, it's great that we're moving up market, but let's make sure we don't leave all our past customers behind. Let's make sure we are still developing new and exciting things at a price point that they are more comfortable with, that they are used to seeing with us. So make sure you are analyzing these tests from different angles and different cohorts to see what is producing the most profit for you so you can build your business around it. All right, that's the lesson plan. That's some real world data and how I analyze it. If I can get one thing across to you from this entire 25-minute presentation, it would be to just try. It would be to just try it a couple of times. The moment we started doing this, I was very surprised at the results. And then once we applied the changes to our business needed to keep up with our new prices, we unlocked an insane velocity of growth, and I want you to be able to do that too. So please go test your prices. And if you liked what I had to say today, you can follow me on Twitter at Nate Lagos, or you can listen to the Tactical and Practical podcast, where I break down tactics like this for you every single week. Thanks so much for listening. I'll talk to you soon.